Hi, I hope you're well today. Today's video is the fifth in my series on how to enhance your overall health, happiness and well-being so that you stay sober more easily. The first one was all about connecting with other people. The second one was be active. It was all about the importance of physical activity. The third was titled Take Notice, and that was all about how to become more reflective, both within your inner world and the exterior world around you. The fourth was about keep learning and how when we set ourselves lots of little small goals along the way, when we're learning something new, we feel a greater sense of satisfaction and achievement, and that makes us feel good about ourselves. And today's is called Give. And it's all about the importance of doing good deeds for others around us in our world and the community around us. And how when we're doing these good deeds, we're being kind, we're giving to others, that has a really positive impact on our health, our happiness and our well-being. And these kind of good deeds can be anything. They can be really small, simple things. They don't have to cost the earth. They don't have to take a massive amount of time. It can be something as simple as visiting a neighbour, baking a cake or something and taking it round to a neighbour. It can be joining a community group. It can be volunteering some of your time to a good cause, looking at volunteering opportunities in your local community. It can be thanking someone, smiling at someone, writing a letter to someone, writing a card to someone. Anything that's putting your energy into making someone else feel good or doing some good for the world around you. There's a kind of intrinsic feel-good factor or reward when we're reaching out to other people in the world around us and helping them and giving something to them in this way. Studies have shown that they've done specific pieces of research on this, and they've shown that one simple act of kindness a day over a 6-week period had a significant impact on health, happiness and well-being of the people who participated. And you might well have come across some of these stories, articles in the media, magazines, TV, etc., of people who've devoted a whole year to doing one act of kindness a day and have waxed lyrical about the positive benefits and impact this has had on them. Greater feelings of fulfillment, a sense of purpose, a sense of happiness, a better understanding and perspective on what matters in life, what matters in the world. All of these things are benefits that we experience when we're giving to the world and to the people around us. An example from my own experience would be when I was volunteering quite recently at a local animal shelter, an animal charity. And what I was doing was, the reason I'm grinning about this is because I loved it so much, was I was fostering kittens. So what would happen is they would rescue an awful lot, there were stacks of them, litters of feral kittens being born in the countryside, in rural areas around the town. They would take in these feral kittens and they would need to socialise them because they couldn't rehome them until they were socialised. And these feral kittens would be very feral, they'd be absolutely wild. And it was my job to handle them, to feed them, to socialise them, to get them used to being held and stroked and petted. Terrible job, I know, it sounds awful, doesn't it? I had a never-ending supply of kittens, so I would take in a little litter, 2, 3, 4 kittens maybe. I would handle them a lot, I would feed them, I would cuddle them, I would stroke them, and a few weeks later I would take them back to the shelter where they were all lovely and sociable with humans and they would be able to be rehomed. And every time I dropped my newly socialised kittens off, I would pick up some fresh feral ones to take home with me. So I had a never-ending supply of kittens. And this was great because not only did I enjoy it, this was a fun activity for me to do. I love animals, I love dogs, I love cats. I'm not particularly bothered about what species of animal it is. But it was very rewarding for me. It was very therapeutic for me because I was handling these tiny little baby creatures, which was a lovely thing to do. But it was also putting me in contact with other people. I was having to make trips to the shelter. I was having to interact with other people. I was having to have conversations. When people wanted to rehome the kittens, they were visiting me at home and I was having to have conversations with them. So it kind of puts you in contact with the wider world. Whatever the deed of kindness is, whether it involves animals like it did in my case, whether it involves other people, whether it involves a neighbour, a family member or a good friend, whatever it is you're doing, when it puts you in contact with other people, it's also giving you that opportunity to build those social connections too. So to conclude, because this is the last video in this series of how to work on your well-being in order to stay sober more easily, the conclusion is just a quick reminder. Number one, and you can go back and look at these if you need to. Number one was connect, the importance of social connections and how that improves your health and well-being. Number two was the importance of being active, physical activity. Number three was take notice, and that was all about being reflective, being mindful, becoming more self-aware and more aware of the world around you. Number four was all about, what was number four? Let me double check. Number four was keep learning. And that was about how when we're learning something new, we get a sense of satisfaction, achievement, reward when we're meeting all of the little goals we have to set ourselves along the way to learning something new. Whatever that might be, whether it's formal or whether it's informal learning. And today's is give. And so the importance of doing acts of kindness, doing good deeds for other people, for the community around us, for the world around us, making a difference and making an impact in a small positive way really enhances your well-being. And when you're doing all of these 5 things, you are really working on your well-being, on your health, on your happiness, on your sense of belonging, your place in the world, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-belief. And all of this work is making it much more likely that when you look in the mirror, you're going to like what you see. You're going to have a much healthier relationship with yourself. And when you like what you see in the mirror, when you have a healthy relationship with yourself, it's much easier to stay on track with living your life sober, because you no longer need to reach for something outside of yourself to make you feel better about yourself. You're already there. You're already feeling as good as you can about yourself. So you kind of eliminate the need to reach for something outside of you to make you feel good, because you're already taking steps to make yourself feel good in all sorts of other healthy ways. So next steps, what can you do next? Well, one of the things you can do, which I recommend to people, is that you kind of make a list. So you have each of your 5 categories: connect, be active, take notice, keep learning, and give. You have your 5 categories and you give yourself a score next to each of those categories in terms of how satisfied you are that you're doing everything you can with that category. So, and I normally use a scale. I normally use a scale of 1 to 6. 6 being I'm totally satisfied with what I'm doing in that area, and 1 being not satisfied at all. So you give yourself a score on that scale of 1 to 6 of how satisfied you are with that area of well-being. So for me, for instance, with connect, in terms of connecting with the world around me, connecting with other people socially, I'm about a 3 on that scale at the moment. So I would score myself a 3 because although I've got good family and I've got good friends, I know I could be doing more in terms of my social connections locally in the community around me. So I want to take more action, take more steps to build my social connection. So I'd score myself a 3 on that scale for connect. And you can work your way through each of those areas, giving yourself a score on that scale. Then what you do is you create a little action plan next to each of those areas. So for instance, if I'm scoring myself a 3 or a 4 or less than that, I'd want to put an action plan into place to bring that score up. So I'd be asking myself, what needs to happen for me to bring that score up to a 5 or a 6? And create a little action plan, a list of all the things I can do to help me bring that score up. So one of the things that I've got on my list of things to do is to join a book club, a reading group. There's a list of different things I've got, and a really good idea when you're creating an action plan of all the things you're going to do to bring your score up, really good idea is to create a date by when you're going to do that thing. Because when you create a date, you put it in your diary, you plan for it, you make sure it happens. You make it happen by giving it a by when. When is this going to happen by? So you list your 5 different areas of well-being, you give yourself a score next to each, and you create a little action plan next to the ones that are scoring less than a 5 or 6. And that action plan, you also give a by when date. When is this going to happen by? To make sure that you actually put that action into place. You actually take that action going forwards. So any questions, leave me a message. If you want more tips, advice, thoughts, inspiration on living your life happily and healthily sober, you can subscribe to my channel. I'll look forward to catching up with you really soon. But in the meantime, let's go get sober together.